One of the things I like to talk about is some of the misconceptions that are out there about both Alice, our concepts, and the results of our training. And most of these fallacies, if you will, they're really a result of competitors spreading nonsense about our program. One of the things I get asked about all the time is, why are you teaching kids to fight a gunman? Nothing could be further from the truth. We're not teaching anybody to fight a gunman. Our programs are based on common sense, but they're also based on the abilities of the demographic. Obviously, my discussions with a kindergartner would not be the same as they would be, say, for a college student or any adult. But that gets mixed in some of the noise when people are discussing the so-called controversial aspect of our program. Yes, our counter strategies do involve the potential for physical interaction, but it's physical interaction designed for a group of potential victims who far outnumber their adversary, this lone attacker, in order to take control of him and take control back of the situation. It's no different than many trainings that are out there for organizations that deal with specialized population, mentally and physically handicapped people that just because of their handicap, they can sometimes get out of control. Well, the staff needs to know, how do I get this person back under control physically, in many cases, to stop them from either hurting themselves or hurting others. They take back control. They don't fight them. Well, it's the same thing with our program. At age appropriate and age capable times, their abilities change. So our program is designed to talk to folks at their various levels of capability, what they can do. It's no different than, from the Alice perspective, our training is really, for the very young ones, is not that much different than a stranger danger type of training that young children receive. In its most broken down terms, it's break contact, get away. We don't want them to stay in close vicinity to a very determined attacker. Just like if someone on the street tries to grab them up, we don't want the child to go willingly with that person. We want them to break contact and get away. Now, we don't teach the young ones control strategies because in the thankfully few cases we've had where elementary age children have come under attack, it's not by one of their peers. It's typically an adult figure who has come into the facility. But once you hit, junior high and above, we're typically talking peer against peer, and we're talking a large number of peers versus a one. 98% of the violent intruders in our country for the last 50 years, it's been one person. And so, the folks in the scene vastly outnumbered this person, but did we teach them how to use that advantage? We're not teaching people to attack gunmen. We're teaching them, if necessary, how can you survive the gunman by using all the advantages that you have and by making his job much harder. So that's one fallacy I want to address, that we're teaching people to attack gunmen. Nothing could be further from the truth. Another one is that our training yields in this incredible amount of injuries. Have we had injuries occur in our trainings, both in our trainings and then maybe when trainings are conducted back home? Yes. But that's not an abnormality when you have people engaged in physical activity. Sometimes stuff happens, and you're also introducing the human element that you can't completely script for and prepare for, because people sometimes act in a way that you don't understand why they did what they did. They act outside the way that we envisioned the event to occur, and sometimes accidents happen. You just can't prepare for anything. You try to create as safe a training environment as you can, but anytime you have humans engaging in physical activity, there can be potential injuries. High school football, we try to make the sport of football as safe as we can, and yet we have students hurt every Friday night. Well, we don't stop playing football because that people get hurt. Well, the same mentality applies to this training. We don't stop training people because a very small number of people get hurt. We've been doing this now for well over a decade, And I can count on one hand out of the thousands of people that we've trained, actually out of the millions of people that have been trained in ALIS strategies, I could count in one hand the people that I know of that have been hurt in a fairly serious way. They've had a leg injury or something. And typically it was an accident. It wasn't, anybody hurt them. It was an accident that got them hurt. So, this idea that numerous people have suffered incredible injuries and we have all these lawsuits been filed. We've never had a lawsuit filed against us. Never. We've never had a workman's comp claim filed. So again, I don't know, you have to keep in mind, in many cases, these attacks on the program are perpetrated by competitors. We get people that make competitors who make the claim about, we do this training for money. Yes, we provide a service and we get paid for that service, as do they. They just provide a different service. So because our program led the way in the movement from proactive strategies away from passive strategies, which many of our competitors have been teaching for years and have been teaching people, in my opinion, very inadequately for years. And the movement has come away from their way of thinking. You look at all of the recommendations that are out there now from the major federal agencies and from many state agencies. They don't mirror their way of thinking, they mirror our way of thinking. And there was a period of time when I was deemed to be very controversial. But now when you have Department of Justice, Department of Education, Health and Human Services, FEMA, DHS, you have all the major alphabet soup of federal law enforcement, health and safety and education agencies supporting proactive response. I don't think I can be that controversial anymore. I don't think our program can be deemed to be that controversial anymore. We are much more aligned with the current standard of care than some of our competitors who keep wanting to poke at us.
Okay, let's not stop it yet. Can you actually, I was thinking, well, I would probably cut it out. I'll just cut it up. Can you talk about the Iowa Department of Homeland Security funding running out?
Another example of our program being attacked, if you will, is something one of our competitors put out there, that the Iowa Department of Homeland Security canceled their contract with us. Again, that's not true. We did 2 contracts with the Iowa Department of Homeland Security Region 1, and those contracts impacted every county in the state of Iowa. We did approximately 33 classes for Iowa Department of Homeland Security over 2 contracts. Every county in the state ended up having representatives attend one of those 33 classes, and when we were done with those 33 classes, we had fulfilled the contract. The contract wasn't canceled, the contract ended because we had fulfilled the contract. So this misnomer of people were getting hurt and the contract was canceled is a complete falsehood.
And then another complaint, Michael Dorn is specifically the one that says this a lot, that we focus too much on active shooter and not other threats.
One of our competitors makes the claim that we just focus on active shooters. In a way, that's true. I don't hide the fact that our focus is the violent intruder event, and we focus on training all citizens and law enforcement for their various roles and their various response strategies to that particular event. It's interesting that one of the competitors who makes this claim that we're too focused on active shooter recently published an article that talked about people are too focused on active shooters. They need to focus on the real threat, terrorist attack. Well, in its base form, all the terrorist attack, in our mind, and what we foresee in a terrorist attack is multiple active shooters coming into the facility. It's still the same type of basic situation. You have an armed individual coming into the facility determined to hurt large numbers of people. Whether it's 1 or it's 5, the responses and the concepts of the response don't change. break contact, get away if you can, take back control if you must. There's no difference.
Good. Are there any others you can think of?
Counter versus fight.
Yeah, you did that first with teaching kids not to fight it. We don't teach them to fight a gunman. What about what parents should do? Not a parent overview, but Ken Trump keeps telling them, call your school board, get rid of Alice. Is there something that we can say to counter that?
To parents of school-age kids, what I would say, first off, find out what your schools are doing. How are they training your kids, and what are they training your kids? If they're training your child to only respond in a passive and static manner, ask them why. Ask them why their school is not following standards and concepts currently being promoted by the United States Department of Education, the School Safety Task Force of the state of Massachusetts, the School Safety Task Force of the state of Ohio, the state guidelines of the state of Alabama. Many federal and state agencies now have moved away from the traditional passive static response and are recommending schools should have more proactive response strategies as part of their training, their policies and procedures. So first ask your school, what are you doing? Are you doing passive or proactive? But it's, again, think about your child and how you would want them to respond to danger. Would you only want them to understand one method of survival? Or would you rather, age appropriately, they know what all their options are so that they may make the decision? We don't tell little Sally if someone tries to snatch her off the street to get in the car with the guy. We tell her to do everything but get in the car with the guy, and here are various things that you can try. Well, this is no different. Sandy Hook Elementary School, you look at the classrooms and what happened in those classrooms, and as horrific as it was, there were some very heroic people. One of them being one young student, just Lewis, who although mortally wounded, told his fellow students to run. This was a little boy. And the children that ran after his advice, every one of them survived. The ones that stayed in the classroom, unfortunately, suffered a great tragedy. Those parents suffered a great tragedy. Would we had a better outcome if they all would have ran? Who knows? It's always hypothetical. You can Monday morning quarterback all you want. But we know the ones that did run survived. They were no longer a target of opportunity. They did what they had been trained to do and go to the rally point. The problem with the rally point wasn't open, so they had to go somewhere else. But they followed the plan that they had been taught at 6 years old. And when that plan, there was a problem with that plan and that the rally point wasn't available to them, they came up with another plan, and they went through the woods and ended up in a neighborhood. So even very young children can think through an event and come up with a plan of response, just as long as they haven't been made to do one thing. So that would be my recommendation for parents who are just fearful of their young kids being empowered to do something. Just understand that kids have already done it. Your child is capable, probably more capable than you realize.
As a follow-up to that, can you talk about how parents have the right to know? So, because I think there's some people, I think it would be a good explanation to say, you have the right to ask these questions. You have the right, your voice should be heard. Through your local school administrators, your PTA, whoever, you can ask these questions of your school administrators. How are you preparing and training my child to act, and why are you or are you not following current recommendations? Don't be afraid to ask the questions. You are the child's parent. You have a right to know. Also know or find out, do you have the ability to opt out of the training that is being conducted? Find out that if the school has a lockdown only plan,
What would be the ramifications if your child ran out of the building and tried to run to safety? You know, I've had parents contact me saying their schools have mandated lockdown in place, and they've told the students that if they try to leave, they'll be reprimanded. If they try to counter a gunman's violence, they'll be reprimanded. You know, it's silly, but make sure you know what your child knows. And if you deem it to be inadequate, then be a voice in your community and try to attempt to change.